Brazil's Supreme Court has overturned all of former President Luda Da Silva's convictions brought through Operation Lava Jato. In the United States, the trial of former police officer Derek Chauvin has begun, charged with the murder of George Floyd on May 25, 2020. Senegal's president calls for calm after days of deadly clashes between opposition supporters and security forces. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Gladys Quesada. In Brazil, Supreme Court Judge Edson Fachin has overturned all of former President Luda Da Silva's convictions brought through Operation Lava Jato. With the Supreme Court's decision, Lula regains his political rights and will be able to participate in next year's election. The ruling comes after consecutive defeats for the Lava Jato or car wash operation, including its dismantling this year. It also comes after the revelation of messages showing that the public prosecutor's office and former judge Sergio Moro acted illegally when conducted investigations as part of the operation. And Argentina's president, Alberto Fernandez, reacted on Twitter to the news that the Brazilian Supreme Court had overturned the convictions against former Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, clearing the way for the left-wing leader to run in the 2022 presidential election. Fernandez stressed that the convictions against Lula were issued with the sole purpose of persecuting him and eliminating him from the political sphere, and noted that the ruling meant justice has been done. And also, Bolivia's movement towards socialism has consolidated itself as the leading political force in the country, following the regional elections held on Sunday. The unofficial results show that the support for the party was concentrated in 6 departments, where it was already established as a major political organization. Party leader and former President Evo Morales welcomed the results and emphasized that the movement continues to be a historic political force of the country. If these trends continues as the official results come in, the party is set to win in 5 of 9 departments and will advance to the second round of elections in 2 of them, to be held on April 11th. In Colombia, a new massacre was reported in the northern state of Santander, with 5 people dead and another 5 injured. The assassinations took place in a rural zone located between Abrego and Oca municipalities late Saturday. The authorities have identified the victims as Wilton Prada Puentes, Elber Ortiz Ballesteros, José Luis Vega Plata, Jesús Alberto Vega, and Robinson Garay Barbosa. Around 16 massacres have been registered in Colombia during the first 3 months of 2021. And the president of Paraguay, Mario Abdo Benitez, has appointed a new Minister of Health after the former minister resigned in the face of protests over the handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. The new minister, Julio Borba, replaces Julio Mazzoleni and stated that he will focus his efforts on the acquisition of COVID-19 vaccines for the population, including, if necessary, through the visits to the countries producing the vaccines. He also acknowledged that the country has only acquired 24,000 vaccines doses so far. And we'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. In the United States, the trial of former police officer Derek Chauvin has begun, charged with the murder of George Floyd on May 25, 2020. Chauvin has pled not guilty to second-degree unintentional murder and second-degree manslaughter charges. In addition, a charge of third-degree murder that was dismissed in October is now in limbo after an appeals court ruled the trial judge should reconsider a motion to reinstate it. Jury selection in the trial, being held at the Hennepin County Government Center, was delayed from Monday to Tuesday as the court tries to decide how to proceed with that appeal. Video of Floyd's death while being pinned to the floor by Chauvin went viral, sparking outrage and triggering a wave of protest against police brutality and systemic racism in the United States and beyond. Libyan lawmakers began consultations on Monday aimed at confirming a newly appointed government which will lead the country through elections by the end of the year. More than 130 members of the House of Representatives met in the coastal city of Sirte after Prime Minister-designate Abdul Hamid Dibagh presented his proposed cabinet to Speaker Aguila Saleh last week. The proposed cabinet includes 33 ministers and 2 deputy prime ministers, representative of Libya's different geographic areas and social segments. Lawmakers finished their deliberations on Monday and were excluded until convening again Tuesday morning, when the Prime Minister is set to address Parliament. The Parliament has until March 24th to confirm the newly appointed government. And Venezuela has begun vaccinating teachers against COVID-19 after President Nicolás Maduro Moros called for a return to in-person teaching in April. The government plans to inoculate around 100,000 teachers with the vaccine produced by Chinese laboratory Sinopharm. On the weekend, President Maduro stated that on-site classes suspended last March should be resumed in April. Venezuela launched its vaccination campaign against COVID-19 on February 18th after receiving a first batch of the Russian Sputnik V vaccine, which was destined to health sector workers. According to the government, the country has received 200,000 doses of Sputnik V out of a total of 10 million agreed with Moscow and 500,000 doses from Sinopharm.
In my community, there were many infected people, and I saw firsthand what COVID is at the beginning, but now there is confidence and we have already handled more the educational part of how to work with the children, the health protocols, how to work at school, so there is a lot of confidence with this vaccine. I think we are going to come back peaceful in April.
It's excellent, since this is what can cure us to be able to continue with our work, and since this new trend is here, we all have to get vaccinated. This is necessary. There are people who are afraid to get it. It does not cause any effect. I just go in it and I feel perfectly fine.
UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson on Monday said that the return of children to school in England after a 2-month closure had been emotional, but he also urged people not to let their guard down and to follow the rules in order to keep the coronavirus controlled. Teachers' unions have criticized Johnson and his government for forcing them back into classrooms without the necessary health and safety guarantees.
We will continue on this roadmap, but we must remember that today's return to schools will of course have an impact on the spread of the virus. And so at all times, and as we decide on the next steps forward and when we take them, we will be driven by the data. And with the number of patients being admitted to hospital with COVID each day still around 8 times higher than the lows of last summer, it's more vital than ever to follow the rules.
Hungarians woke up to a new round of strict lockdown measures on Monday, aimed at slowing a record-breaking wave of COVID-19 hospitalizations and fatalities. A rapid rise in pandemic indicators since early February prompted the government to announce the new restrictions on Thursday, including the closure of most stores of 2 weeks and for kindergartens and primary schools until April the 7th. Most services are also required to cease operation, and the government urged businesses to allow employees to work from home. Grocery stores, pharmacies and gas stations are allowed to remain open. Prime Minister Viktor Orbán warned that the strain of the country's hospitals will soon surpass that of any other period of the pandemic, and that failing to impose tougher restrictions now will result in tragedy.
I have income and I have cost. If the first one is not higher, I can't pay rent, I can't pay salaries. or social contributions, not to mention the taxes. The Prime Minister said to expect the worst and hope for the best. I am hopeful.
The Chinese city of Wuhan was the epicenter of the COVID-19 outbreak in 2020 and the most devastated in the country by the pandemic. However, the situation today is very different. Our colleague and CGTN reporter in Wuhan, Pan Jinjin, brings us more details in the following report.
Wuhan, once the epicenter of COVID-19 in 2020 and the city most devastated by the pandemic in the whole China, is now a much calmer city. Its inhabitants were able to enjoy the Spring Festival in safer conditions. The city is experiencing an increase in the number of customers in practically all of its establishments, although all of the biosecurity measures are still being followed. Citizens have become accustomed to wearing masks and keeping their distance despite the fact that no new cases of COVID-19 have been detected in months. As in the rest of the country, Wuhan has implemented a health code system based on EPIC data that analyzes travel histories and possible exposures to virus outbreaks. Nucleic acid testing for risk groups has been standardized. Wuhan was the first city in China to report cases of COVID-19 in late December 2019. The city's lockdown was a decisive step in stopping the spread of the virus in the country. During the 76 days of confinement, coronavirus patients were effectively isolated and classified. For mild cases, field hospitals were set up in gymnasiums and exhibition centers. 2 emergency hospitals with a capacity of 1,000 beds each were built within 2 weeks. The measures adopted by the Chinese government led to a reduction in the number of infections in less than 3 months.
And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Senegal's President Macky Sall called for calm on Monday after days of deadly clashes between opposition supporters and security forces in the West African state.
I call for calm and peace, all together. Let's silence our bitterness and avoid the logic of confrontation which leads to the worst. On the judicial aspect of this crisis, let justice take its course in complete independence. I also understand, my dear fellow citizens, that the anger that has been expressed in recent days is also linked to the impact of an economic crisis aggravated by the COVID-19 pandemic.
However, clashes erupted between police and demonstrators in Dakar on Monday after the release of the opposition leader Ousmane Sonko. Police shot tear gas and non-lethal ammunition while protesters blocked streets. Some built barricades and threw objects against the security forces. Sonko's supporters vowed to start 3 more days of demonstrations, and some indicated they will push ahead even as the opposition figure was expected to be released from custody later Monday after being formally charged. Meanwhile, in El Salvador, more than 5,000 women marched from a park in the west of the capital, San Salvador, to the central plaza to demand the decriminalization of abortion and denounce the violation of their rights. The coordination of the citizens groups for the decriminalization of therapeutic, ethical, and eugenic abortion, Morena Herrera, stated that 18 women are imprisoned in the country due to the law against the interruption of pregnancy. The Penal Code of El Salvador sentences abortion with 2 to 8 years in prison, but prosecutors and judges classify the cases as aggravated homicide, a crime punishable by 30 to 15 years in prison. This Monday saw protests in Colombia to mark International Women's Day, with several roads blocking the capital, Bogota. The mobilizations, which moved towards the central Bolivar Square, disrupted traffic and public transport. The vast majority of protesters peacefully rallied to demand an end to gender-based violence in the country and pay tribute to the many victims of femicide. They also highlighted the magnitude of the conflict-related sexual violence against women in Colombia, which is yet to be fully understood and addressed. And also, to mark International Women's Day, President of Argentina, Alberto Fernandez, signed a federal agreement with provincial governors to promote united action against gender-based violence in the country. The President and governors, as well as the Minister of Women, Genders and Diversity, Elizabeth Gomez, signed the federal agreement for an Argentina united against gender-based violence during an act held at the Bicentennial Museum of the Presidential Palace to tackle the widespread cases of femicides in the country. During his speech, Fernandez stressed the importance of ensuring gender equality and noted that the state reaction to cases of femicide is slow or non-existent.
Today, we are taking steps as a society that encouraged us to build competent state policy that will lead us to agree that there are things that we will not tolerate in any corner of Argentina, and one of those things is gender-based abuse, much less femicide, and we will not agree to unequal treatment of women in the workplace or in family life.
And as part of International Women's Day, thousands of women in Spain demonstrated this Monday to demand their rights. In Barcelona, feminist collectives led a huge purple march that covered the main streets of the city. Thousands of participants voiced their condemnation of all forms of violence against women and demanded respect for their rights, denouncing the inequality that continues to exist between men and women. Despite the restrictions in place due to the pandemic, Barcelona has seen flexibilization of the measures. However, arrests were made in other cities due to the crowds gathering to mark International Women's Day.
I find it complicated, and I find it a pity that there are some struggles that I think it is a time when we have to try to make our voices heard, and it is in the face of the violence of the far right. We have to find ways to vindicate the end of machismo and racism that is growing everywhere.
Because today, when I got up, I realized that there is still inequality in the world. The women get paid less, that we work more at home, and that they kill us more. So if I wake up tomorrow and there is not inequality, maybe I wouldn't come. But as long as it's there, I will come every year.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please follow us in social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.